Hey y'all, welcome to this video. For those who may not know me, my name is Ima Lohi, and today I want to take some time to talk about birth control. This video is a part of a series of digital content for the Free the Pill Fest. Free the Pill is a campaign to educate and engage the public in support of an over-the-counter birth control option in the United States, covered by insurance with no age restriction. Now, by the very definition, this is reproductive justice, right? We stand accessibility, we stand bodily autonomy, and all the things that warrant folks the freedom to determine the if, the hows, and the whens of having children. But for Black women, our participation in the birth control movement is not so simple and straightforward. It's a complicated one that doesn't fit so easily within progressive or conservative ideologies. Some methods of birth control use in the United States can be dated all the way back to the transatlantic slave trade. Slave women were subjected to frequent sexual exploitation by their slave owners. So, in resistance to the sexual oppression that Black slave women faced, they often resorted to their own forms of contraception and abortion. They drew up African folk remedies and would concoct medicines, and these would be shared throughout the slave woman community. Now, fast forward to 1896, Black women in the US had begun voicing their beliefs on a political platform by mobilizing through various national clubs, such as the National Association of Colored Women's Club, also known as the NACWC, which was founded by Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, and other prominent African American women leaders. The NACWC is one of the first noted Black women organized clubs to endorse the movement for birth control as a means to empower the Black American woman. Their efforts persisted with the Harlem Community Forum that took place in March 1923, where Margaret Sanger, a well-renowned reproductive rights activist, was invited to speak on the benefits of birth control. Throughout the 1920s, Sanger pushed for the openings of birth control clinics in largely Black-populated low-income areas. And Black folks eagerly made use of the contraceptive options made available to them. So, yes, Margaret Sanger's strides for birth control were major for reproductive health care, but it was most definitely muddied by her ties to the inherently racist, classist, and ableist eugenics movement of the 20th century. Now, for those who may not know, eugenics is a set of beliefs and practices with the goal of controlling the reproduction of specific populations deemed to be less desirable, such as poor people, people of color, immigrants, the disabled, the mentally ill, etc., insert any marginalized group here. This has been achieved through coercive legislation, mandating birth control, and or forced sterilizations. So throughout history, poor Black and brown women were often purposely misled into eugenics-based methods of population control. Women of color were routinely sterilized without reason. Further, they were threatened with removal of welfare benefits or denial of medical care and assistance if they did not consent to these procedures. By the mid-20th century, government-authorized forced sterilizations plagued Black, brown, and indigenous communities all across the country. And this history of oppressive reproductive health practices is not that distant of a memory. Forced sterilization was legal in 32 states in the US until the late 1970s. Forced sterilizations became such common practice that in the 1950s, Black Southern women began calling these involuntary procedures a Mississippi appendectomy. And so through these oppressive practices, reproductive freedom did not look like placing dignity and self-determination in the hands of the people. Best said by scholar and social critic Dorothy Roberts, birth control became a means of controlling a population rather than a means of increasing a woman's reproductive autonomy. As a result, male-dominated Black nationalist parties of the late 1960s and 70s, like the Black Panthers and the Nation of Islam, were strongly opposed to the encouragement of birth control and protested against government-funded family planners who they viewed to be furthering an agenda of Black population control and even furthering Black genocide. Toni Cade recalls in her 1969 essay, The Pill, Genocide or Liberation, that some men within these parties encouraged sisters to throw away the pill, hop onto the mattress, and birth revolutionaries.
What? Child. Anyway, so
She does an excellent job in her essay in rejecting the reductive and sexist implication that a woman's role in the movement is just to bear children. But this just goes to show what Black women had to deal with even within movement spaces. However, this isn't to say that all Black men felt this way. Prominent civil rights leader W.E. Du Bois publicly endorsed birth control as a means of improving Black health. Now, if all this information feels like a lot, that's because it is. And it's been Black women at the center of these controversies about birth control's role in the struggle for racial and sexual equality for years. Black women have had to battle the ignorance from white feminists who fail to recognize the unique racial issues we face, while battling men, Black and white, who fail to recognize the importance of women's bodily autonomy and self-determination. And for further complication, we can sprinkle in some religious respectability and shaming practices too. Dorothy Roberts writes that attending to Black women's perspective on birth control, recognizing its potential for both liberation and oppression, makes an important contribution towards the development of a more just vision of reproductive freedom. So we can explore the liberatory aspects of birth control while simultaneously critiquing the means that got us here and examining the power structures that shape our relationship to it. If y'all know me, y'all know I am down to free the pill, period. But let's also examine what this freedom looks like for all folks and at whose expense it's taken for us to acquire it.